From the writer of Scary Movie 3 and the star of The Great Wall comes, weirdly, one of the best video game adaptations ever made. So that's right, the video game adaptation curse is broken. Let's go, boys! The Last of Us is here on HBO, and we have all the details you missed in episode 1. Hey, what's an easy way to signify that it's curtains for humanity? If only there was an easy visual metaphor we could use. After the 60s set prologue featuring Big Head and Jonathan from The Mummy, the first shot we see is of curtains waving in the breeze. Despite the obvious visual analogy, this also echoes the start screen from the now classic video game. There is a difference in the surrounding decay, as in the show, as the infected have not yet caused humanity's downfall, but give them some time. I mean, the apocalypse, it's hard work. Let's jump back to the opening and its surprising period setting. Showing us a television studio in 1968, a talk show host speaks with two scientists about possible doomsday scenarios. One of them explains how a fungus could evolve to control humans and turn them against each other.
So if that happens, we lose.
He cites the example of an ant infected with Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. And that is the last time I will pronounce that name in this video, if only for the sake of my recording storage, because that was my 20th take. The zombie fungus, as it's commonly known, is a spore that infects ants and drives them to aid in the fungus's spread. This was the initial inspiration for Druckman when he was creating the main enemy of the game. Druckman and Naughty Dog partner Bruce Straley watched the 2009 BBC docuseries Planet Earth, narrated by the world's sweetest nature grandpa, David Attenborough. David's always working, probably to overshadow his late brother, because that guy gave us back dinosaurs. The clip was of the zombie fungus, and the inspiration came at the end when Attenborough stated,
"The more numerous a species becomes, the more likely it will be attacked by its nemesis, a cordyceps fungus."
That's when Druckman asked, "What if it jumped to humans?" And that's when the world's saddest video game franchise was born. Suck on that, Telltale's The Walking Dead. Actually, now that I bring that up, let's talk about the spore-spewing, mushroom-faced zombies of The Last of Us. The episode's opening has some information on the origins of the virus, but as of episode 1, we haven't seen everything this fearsome fungus has to offer. Creepy, out-of-focus grandma gives us an early sign of infection, which then causes them to go all rage virus crazy. As the scientist at the start explains, the fungus is driving them to spread the infection. We also get a look at the final stage of this virus with the corpse that Joel and Tess find. What we have yet to see are the really gross steps in between. The first stage is appropriately called runners. After that, they move into the stalker phase, where they prefer hiding and then jumping out to grab you like a giant jerk. Ah! Composure. The next stage is the most iconic of the series, and that's the fearsome clicker. Now blind from the infection, they use echolocation to track their prey. We had a glimpse of one in the trailer for the series. Though he may look ugly, don't worry. He's still a fun guy. I have no regrets. The other stages are Bloater and the Shambler, which is pretty self-explanatory. The less said about them, the better, because yuck. So as far as adaptations of Naughty Dog games go, The Last of Us is far better than Marky Mark and Spider-Man flying around on pirate ships in the sky. Sorry, I just need a moment to recover from the memories of that failure. A large part of that faithfulness comes from writer and co-president of Naughty Dog, Neil Druckman. Druckman was the creative director and writer of the original PS3 game and its 2020 follow-up. He also wrote the Uncharted games, but unlike that film, Druckman has a large amount of creative control over the HBO show. And there's also whole sequences taken from the game's opening. That amazing one-shot of Sarah's wild truck ride is taken almost exactly from the opening. However, being an adaptation, things naturally have to be expanded a bit. The game opens on Joel and Sarah watching movies at home, but the show shows us the day running up to that moment. It even introduces new characters in the ill-fated neighbors and their totally not zombified grandma. At least the dog got away. There was some controversy, as there always is, around the casting of The Last of Us. Pedro Pascal plays Joel with every bit of damage and trauma as his video game counterpart, but he can't grow a beard, so 1 out of 10 do not watch. However, there is one piece of casting that the fans should literally have no issue with because it's played by literally the same actor. Even though I'm sure they will find a way. Marlene is the Firefly leader who tasks Joel with protecting Ellie after an ill-timed gunfight. In both game and show, she is played by actress Merle Dandridge. She isn't the only returning actor from the game, though. Ellie and Joel's voice actors will also be showing up in the series, though they won't be reprising their characters from the game. Unless, of course, both versions of Joel and Ellie are challenged to a space jam during the series. But that probably won't happen as long as LeBron isn't involved in the series, and so far he's not. So far. Is there any more of a match made in heaven than HBO television and amazing opening title sequences? Dating all the way back to The Wire and The Sopranos, HBO has delivered stellar opening titles. The Last of Us gives us a sequence following ominous spreading mold, forming networks and towers. At one point, you can even see the outline of the United States form in their vast spread. Side note, I apologize for saying the words vast spread. I will never say that again, except for just now. Sorry. And that gorgeous twangy guitar theme is not an addition for the HBO show, it's the same one used for the game. Composed by Gustavo Santaolalla, it's a seminal part of the game's tone, and, fortunate for us, he's composed new music for the series. You can also find his amazing work in the films Babel and Brokeback Mountain, both of which won him an Academy Award. And who says games aren't art? Are you listening, Mom? Just before the world goes to hell, Joel gets the chance to take in one last cinematic masterpiece with his daughter.
Oh, this is the one with the deleted scenes.
Yeah, imagine how bad those have to be.
The DVD she borrows from the neighbors is Curtis and Viper 2. It's the classic tale of a man and his ninja buddy kicking butt in the 1980s. Or it would be, if it existed. Guess I'll just have to stick with the 40 million other ninja movies made in the 80s. Curtis and Viper is a fictional film series that is brought up a few times throughout the series, notably in a conversation between Elle and Dina.
What movie you guys gonna watch? What's Joel into?
Curtis and Viper 2.
According to her, the series is about two ex-mercenaries going on a quest for vengeance. Also, according to Elle, they actually made 4 of them. She also says Viper was 10 years old in the first film, so I'm not sure how good of a mercenary he was. Although Viper is definitely what 10-year-old me would have named myself. We will have to see if any other movies from the series pop up in the remainder of the show. I'm excited to see what happens in Curtis and Viper 3, Python's Revenge. The new HBO series takes some inspiration from more than just the game series. 2018 saw the release of the Alex Garland sci-fi film Annihilation. Garland was a longtime screenwriter, responsible for bringing the world the banger of a film, Dread. While he was writing the script for his film, he took heavy inspiration from one of his favorite games, The Last of Us. The film features a similar tone and setting, following a team of people making their way through a mutated, post-apocalyptic landscape. It also featured terrifying monsters that attacked the travelers in sudden bursts of action. Well, inspiration goes both ways, and Druckman paid Garland homage back twice. The first comes from the second game with the introduction of the vile Rat King. Druckman took inspiration from Annihilation's Screaming Bear when he designed the encounter. Now, the first episode of the show gives us another homage to the Alex Garland film with the body growing into the wall. Both film and show feature a corpse disintegrating into a concrete wall, becoming more mold than man. It's clear Druckman is also a fan of Garland's work, as per this tweet. Now the world needs them to collaborate on something that would end up being the most heady and depressing film ever made. I even know the perfect title. It would be called Box Office Poison. Sorry, Alex. I loved devs, by the way. Call me? There are other elements of the game that make their way into the show. The first is everyone's favorite, hardcore drugs! Yeah, who wants to party? Anyway, yes, Joel is dealing drugs on the side in the walled-off Boston City. He isn't just selling them, he's actively using them too. Not that I blame him with that day job. The same is true of his video game counterpart, though the effect is much nicer for the Troy Baker version. In the game, they are just used as a healing item, restoring life after a particularly brutal fight. In the show, they just give him a deadly hangover, which is like the opposite of a health pack. But maybe they just restore his mental health. Maybe not. Joel also scores his first metric on the KDA chart with a wrench. This could be a nod to the fact that he uses melee weapons in the game to dispatch both the infected and troublesome humans along the way. Going a little further down the wrench rabbit hole, it could also be an homage to another game series which features Joel's voice actor Troy Baker. BioShock features the tool in a similar way, being used to bash on the head of some crazy zombie. The Last of Us and BioShock Infinite were released the same year, and both feature Troy Baker protecting an important young woman from bad dudes. This may seem like a huge coincidence, but Troy Baker is in practically every video game ever made. I mean, he's also Nathan Drake's brother and Pagan Min.
Stop the bus. Not shoot the bus.
The only reason why he's not the male lead in every video game series is because Nolan North exists.
Fell out of a car that fell out of a plane?
Hey, something like that happened to me once.
The Last of Us is off to such an amazing start, with one of the most riveting hours of television in recent memory. The series continues next week with Joel, Tess, and Ellie making their way through a spore-infected wasteland. And judging from the ominous Depeche Mode song on the radio, they're in for some trouble. By the way, the name of that song is Never Let Me Down Again, which is foreshadowing of the highest order. I see you, Druckman. You can't hide from me. Though a stalker still can. Ah! Every time. I hate it.